This episode of The Payload is brought to you in partnership with Legion by Lenovo and Intel. Find out more about Legion by Lenovo on Facebook and Twitter at Legion by Lenovo.
The podcast for heroes in the world of Overwatch. This is The Payload.
Hey everybody! Oh, wow. That was unexpected. I see why you now take a large, loud drink during the intro song every week. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 66 of The Payload. We're an Overwatch podcast from blizzard-activision. Today is May 4th, Star Wars Day 2017. From Denver, Colorado. I'm John Horseman. We're missing a third of us today. He's defending the galaxy this week. Oh, that dog. He's defending the galaxy this week. So this week it's just going to be Rosh and I hanging out, talking about Overwatch from Who Caresville, California. It's Rosh.
Hey, that's me.
Hey,
that's me. Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I think it'll be very fun to have it just be you and me on the podcast. I do miss Jimmy, but this kind of brings up the nostalgia of the very first podcast that I was on, where we brought me on before making the introduction that I was going to actually co-host the podcast. So I think that's pretty cool that we've come a long, interesting way since then. So I'm excited to do this podcast this week.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And I look forward to the talk. We're actually talking Mercy this week.
Yeah, we'll support mains, but yeah, Mercy's definitely a support main, so we'll definitely get into her. So yeah, actually that's a really good point, because I didn't think about that. The first time I was on this podcast and it was just you and me, it was about Mercy.
We're revisiting.
And this time, yeah, it just happened to be the same thing. So that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun show. We're gonna miss Jimmy. We hope you're having fun this week and all that good stuff. But let's jump into a little housekeeping, talk about our weeks in Overwatch, and then get on with the show. So first, Patreon. We do have an update to our Patreon. I sent it out to all patrons, but I wanted to let everybody know on the show too as well. We have a Patreon on this show. And in the past, we actually did monthly base contributions. We're actually going to be doing it per episode going forward. And honestly, we're just taking pretty much the current tiers, dividing it by 4. The only reason we're doing that is when real life gets in the way and we can't do a show, patrons still pay for it, whether we do 3 shows in a month or 5. That just didn't seem fair. So the full update is in your Patreon messages, and then I will also post a message to the Patreon itself. So if you decide to become a supporter this month, there won't be any surprises when things change next month. But I just want to let you know that that's what we're doing, and that's it. Boom. That was pretty good for me. Normally I ramble, and I didn't, because sometimes when you ramble about things and
you almost made it. I'm proud of you. You almost made it.
Rosh, how was your week this week?
It's been pretty good. I'm not sure if I think I made it after the show last week, but I hit a new SR high of 4124, 4112. I can't remember what that was. So I still have. Granted, this was on my Smurf because for some reason I can't help but fall on my main and climb on my Smurf, but that's a whole nother story. I still have about a 65% win rate as I'm playing, so I think that I could still have some more room to climb, so I'm kind of excited for that. Kind of excited to see how far I get with that too. It also increases my confidence for next season. I got 4100 this season. I should be able to do it, whereas before I wasn't even sure if I could ever hit Grandmaster, so that was pretty cool for me. Other than that, I've just been taking it slow and easy. I think today is day 16 of streaming in a row, so I'm kind of just having a little more fun and relaxing a little more. I also played some VR games for the Uprising event, and It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I seriously underestimated how much I would enjoy it. And I'm really bummed that I didn't start the viewer games until 2 days before the event ended, because I would have done it a lot more. I just really didn't think that I would enjoy it as much. And I loved it. So I really hope that they keep coming out with amazing events like this, because this one was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I know a lot of people really enjoyed the event overall. So I'm surprised that you are just kind of like a resident go hard PvPer, but hey.
It was cool because it added a cool vibe with the stream to be able to play with viewers. And also we did it on not insane. I think the next one is hard or expert, whatever the one below insane was. We did that on that, and
Legendary.
Then it made it more fun. Yeah, I think that's what it was. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But it made it really challenging, and it was cool to be able to achieve something for the first time with the viewers and the friends and people that hang out and stream. So it was cool to be able to share that excitement when we finally beat the event, and I think I squirmed out of my chair because I was just so happy to do it with viewers and stuff. So it was really, really cool.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
You weren't on, or you were on.
I was streaming.
I was going to invite you. Yeah, and you were doing ranked or something like that, because people were like, invite John. We could do this with John. And every time I would go to invite you, someone in chat would be like, hey, I want to play. And then we ended up we played for 3.5 hours, and I was like, all right, I just can't play anymore.
I just like to watch you squirm on the ask you awkward questions, and then just
that's true.
Watch you try to navigate through those. So very good.
Thanks.
As for me, I played a lot of Overwatch this week, and outside of the last 2 days, technological battles, which I have to share with because I am so proud of them. It's been pretty good. I actually have kind of, for the rest of the season, on our non-duo account. I don't even know if we call it a duo account anymore because we never play anymore. On our non-duo account, I'm just playing straight DPS for the most part and Roadhog. Mm-hmm. So trying to switch over to some more carry type heroes. And I've got a 75% win rate doing that instead of Zarya. So I play a pretty decent soldier, I think, now.
Maybe with having played Zarya so much, you've gotten, because Zarya tracking is a huge, huge thing. Maybe that's actually helped you improve on soldier. And now that you're going back to it, you see a lot of progress. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I chose Zarya in the beginning, so that I could transition pretty quickly into a DPS character. And so that's been a lot of fun. I've been playing Destiny in the mornings, getting ready for Destiny 2. I'm really excited. Your dog has climbed out from underneath that bed 4 times, but I haven't seen her climb in. So it's like your bed is birthing dogs right now, and I can't concentrate. I don't know what to even do. Okay, I saw him go in this time. Fair enough.
Okay, there you go.
So it's not a dog creation bed.
Yeah. So
it's one of those box mattresses that you get online that comes with a puppy pooper.
If you just listen to the recordings of the podcast, apparently you're really missing out on something. You should check out the show live sometime.
Yeah, it's whatever is going on in the background of Rash's room is always a blast. But I had a big technological goal this week, and I wanted to use these headphones and this microphone in Xbox chat and hear my Xbox audio without having to do anything. I want to sit down and stream from my PC like I stream from my Xbox. I'm going to be able to do all of that. And the stuff on the internet is really crappy. There's not a whole lot of information there. So I went out, bought about 20 different cables and adapters, ended up keeping 6, spent 10 hours, made it work though. And so now I have a wonderful sounding microphone in Xbox. But it was a nightmare, Rush.
I bet. Didn't you tweet something about taking 8 hours or 9 hours that you had to take a nap and everything because of it?
It was nuts. I wouldn't be able to sleep if I didn't get it solved. And I went to Micro Center, and I'm like, maybe someone here will kind of know a little bit more about this type of audio routing and know more about how Xbox handles audio than I do. And of course they don't. And so Katie is in the other aisle with her iPhone, and she's taking videos of me talking to this poor sales guy who I'm just totally glazing over. And it's, you know, like if you've ever worked retail before, or especially if it's some sort of specialty store. I worked at Apple for 5 years, and, you know, for the most part, people come in, I know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Sometimes people come in, think they know what they're talking about, and they don't. And sometimes you get somebody there who just knows what they're talking about, knows way more about the concept than they were. Yeah. That was like the reverse situation for him. So he's just like, every time I ask questions, like, yup, that'll do it. That'll do it. Yup. Oh, you're getting some ground noise there.
He's basically said yup to every single thing.
I'm like, so what you're saying is I've done everything you would have done, and you don't know. He's like, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. So it was an adventure. Poor Katie. It was her second day off, and I'm like, I'm going to be doing this today. Do you want to come with or not? She's like, yes, I want to come with. I want to hang out. And so she comes with, and about 3 hours into our expedition, she's like, I wish I would have stayed home. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's it for us. Let's go into the news. Oh, no. Wrong button.
This week in Overwatch.
It wasn't the wrong button that I hit the apology one. It was my soundboard went behind the window, for the record. We want to thank our MVPs, Adam B, J.A., Carell, Tommy H, Liam O, and one other person who did not get synced over. Rosh, tell people about our Patreon really quick while I update this. You're on.
Well, we do have a Patreon at this show. I believe that we have hit our goal for our merchandise store. Have we not, John? I believe that last week we were $6 away from it. And I think this week we have a new MVP, which is John is what he's looking at. But we also hit our goal. So we should be able to get the merchandise store up and running. I'm not sure when, but when it does go live, there's a ton of cool shirts that you guys can wear that represent the Payload Podcast. They're super cute. John wears his all the time. You see him in it all the time, but they're super, super cute. And it's just awesome to be able to give back something and share with you guys and the viewers about the podcast. You can find it. Let me get the link because I don't want to.
Patreon.com/Payload
Podcast. Patreon.com. I didn't know if it was the Payload Podcast or just Payload, so I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, Patreon.com/Payload Podcast. You can check it out. You can find out all the details. Like John said earlier in the stream, we do have different tiers now. Well, the same tiers, but it's per show now. So it's a little easier for us to give back for the shows that we give and for you guys not to have to cover shows that we don't give. So check it out. Again, Patreon.com/Payload Podcast.
Perfect. That was wonderful. By the way, it's Stuart J. I knew that name too because we've chatted about it. I owe you an apology. Just kidding. We're not going there. So thank you to Adam B, J.A., Carell, Tommy H, Liam O, and Stuart J. Thank you all for your support of the Payload. And I apologize again. Let's jump in and chat about what's been going on this week in Overwatch. So obviously the Overwatch Uprising event is over. Did you get all of the skins that you wanted and the May spray?
I did. Wait, the May spray. I guess I missed the May spray.
Apparently the May spray was a big deal. The one with her in her summer game shirt. Doing her hair. Apparently that was a big freaking deal to get. I have no idea why.
I missed out on that. I know that the sprays, you got them for specific achievements. So maybe it was the achievement itself that was hard or tedious to get. So if you did get the May spray, it was really cool. Or was it one of the ones that were given in the loot box? I don't know. I didn't hear anything about the May spray, so that's pretty interesting. But all of the other skins I did get. I had some kind viewers donate so that I could buy loot boxes to get the skin. So thank you. I appreciate that. I think I opened like 70 loot boxes and didn't get the Mercy skin though, but I did get the Genji skin twice. So that's that. I was able to get the Widow
one
skin.
for each nipple. So
apparently. But so I definitely got the Genji skin, which was cool since I now have to spend 3,000 coins on that. But I had to end up buying the Mercy skin, the Soldier emote, but everything else I got out of the boxes that I want. And I think that was the Widow, because the Widow skin was pretty cool. I really wanted that one. And actually, I can't remember. The Diva selfie, I got that one too. So I think I got all of the ones that I did want, and was able to buy the ones that I didn't get out of the loot box. So without having to open any of my old loot boxes. So there's that too. I was pretty excited. I still have about 100 loot boxes unopened on the account, so that was cool.
Nice. I actually, outside of the initial $20 that I purchased, I didn't actually have to buy a single loot box.
I'm actually so proud of you. I can't speak for Jimmy because he's not here, but I remember when the season or the events first started coming out, you guys are like throwing money, and I just thought you guys are crazy. So I'm actually super, super proud that $20 is all you invested into this event, because
I'm playing a lot more now.
Way.
I'm playing 5 to 6 hours a day. And so I started this last season at I think rank 70, or I think at level 71. And I'm at 190 something right now.
Oh, yeah.
So, we got we covered some good ground, not on top of our duo, which is, I think, almost 50, 55.
Yeah, I think our duo's pretty high, actually.
So, I've got that, and then I've got my Xbox account at about 130. So, hey, I'm playing a lot of Overwatch, to say the very least. So I got all the ones that I wanted and needed. I made sure to buy all the Zarya stuff, the skins, sprays. Well, no skins, thanks, Jeff. The sprays, voice lines, and the one rare victory pose. So I bought all those. And yeah, so now it's just another few months until something else comes out. Although there is, I don't even put this in the show notes, but have you seen some of the information circulating about there might be some videos queued?
Character, and a map, right? Isn't there some dialogue somewhere out there that someone decoded and it comes out with they're ready, or they updated the YouTube playlist, but it's not available yet. So people are hinting that there's a video coming out, a character and a map. Yeah. Oh, interesting. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I actually completely forgot about it until you just brought it up.
Yeah, so I hope we might see a new hero and a new map soon. So
we did call it last week. I mean, we did say last week that if they're going to release a new character for this year, they probably have to release it pretty fast. So
yeah, and the new maps too, right? 3 new maps and 2 new characters still due for this year. So hey, we'll see. That's the first big thing. The second big thing is Overwatch surpasses 30 million players. That's a big deal. It's a lot of players.
It is a big deal.
It's a lot of Hanzo mains. We make that joke every time. We need to stop. So 30 million players. Rosh, I mean, you've seen this game at its highest levels. You've seen it from different perspectives than I, but 30 million players to me felt like a lot of players. I mean, it is a lot of players. There's no denying. But and Jimmy's not on this show, so I'm going to say it. Is Overwatch here to stay as one of the big games? One of the big 3. Is it going to be up there with League of Legends, Dota / Hearthstone, and Overwatch or Counter-Strike or whatever? Or do you think it's going to Heroes of the Storm us and kind of fall off?
I think that Overwatch brings a unique spin on shooters and MOBAs and any kind of FPS, really. Unlike where HOTS kind of did it did bring in some unique stuff that wasn't in League, but I think that Overwatch brings in more unique attributes and stuff to it than HOTS does to League. So I think that might be one of the reasons that HOTS maybe didn't be or wasn't as successful as it could have been. I think Overwatch is individual or is unique enough to hold its place, and I think if we were going to start today off, we would have already started seeing numbers die off. Instead, we've seen other games, other shooters like PUBG, Battlegrounds has come out, and Overwatch is still holding strong. So I think that that's a major indication. And if you just look at Twitch, it's always in the top 8. Overwatch is always up there. and Overwatch League hasn't even been released. And I think that that's going to be a huge momentum changer just for the better.
It really feels like a calm before the storm right now. And I feel like if you took a snapshot of right now, I could see why some people are worried about the future of Overwatch, because the Alienware Monthly Melee is done with. They're not doing one, or May is going to be the last one. There's other tournaments going on. We're seeing a few like big Blizzard tournaments pop up here and there, but for the most part, outside of Apex, we're not really seeing huge Overwatch tournaments. And so like I can see people's perspective of like, this might, this doesn't look good for the game and stuff. And
maybe if you didn't know what was coming up and you hadn't been paying attention to previous news releases or any information on what's coming up in Overwatch's future, if you took a snapshot of today's progress and what it looks like, and you're finding out tournaments are being slowly cut off, I would think that, maybe you probably do question Overwatch's stability in the future. But knowing the information and knowing that something as huge as Overwatch League is coming up and all that they've built this great, momentous event to be, I think that it's just like you said, it's just kind of stagnant right now. It's kind of the eye in the storm right now, and I think it's going to blow up and it's going to be big.
Cool. I'm glad you feel that way. That makes me feel better. Speaking of staying stagnant, though, we did get a pretty big patch on the PTR yesterday, and it affects Genji, Hanzo, Arisa, Reaper, Reinhardt, and Soldier. So let's jump through some of these changes here really quick. So first, we did get some changes to the custom game browser. We don't play a lot of custom games here, so this doesn't affect us much, but I know there's a lot of our listeners who do enjoy custom games. Players can now disable secondary fire and secondary weapons in custom games. And you can also disable one Symmetra ultimate while leaving the other active. So you can like only make it teleporters or only make it shield gens. So that's going on. But let's talk about the hero changes. So Genji is the first one. Genji, they removed the attack cooldown from Genji's wall climbing ability, allowing him to engage with enemies immediately after completing a climb. And they just said this was a quality of life change. And Rosh, I know that as a support player, this is kind of a nerf to kind of how you get to play around Genji a little bit.
It's hard because looking at the changes, just reading it verbatim, remove the attack cooldown from Genji's wall climbing ability, allowing him to engage with enemies immediately after climbing a wall. That doesn't seem like a big buff. To me, just looking at that, okay, so he can start his ultimate as he's wall climbing. So maybe a Zarya can ult, he can be up there and he can immediately just ult. There's no cooldown. He doesn't have to wait for it to reset or anything like that. But I've been watching some Genji streamers and I've been listening to their input, and they are making this out to be like it is a pretty big buff to Genji and his ultimate. So I haven't played on the PTR. I haven't watched anybody play on the PTR, but I don't think that this is a buff to really sleep on or just kind of idly pass by. I think that it is going to be pretty game changing, at least for Genji players, and I think that it'll make his ult a little more scarier than it is now. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it is going forward, and if it's going to be too strong, if it's going to make a difference, or what exactly is going to happen with it.
Yeah, I find like those quality of life changes that you see on Overwatch characters like affect the highest level and the mains the most, right? Where like we're going to be kind of seeing the Reinhardt change in just a few seconds about the height of his Earth Shatter, where, to people who, don't really play those types of characters, not a big deal. But for somebody who's, constantly min-maxing how she plays her character, you're, going to enjoy those. So I think it's really, I think it's one of those things. I just think that none of us have the mechanical inclination to play Genji, to be like, oh, there was a cooldown there. Cool.
Yeah, like it's for someone who doesn't main Genji, that might not have even affected them because they probably hadn't hit the skill cap or the ceiling for the skill. So people who do main Genji and play a lot of Genji and feel like they're an amazing Genji and they have nothing else to learn, this is just increasing the skill cap for them, and I think that that's going to be good. So I think you're completely right. It might not affect as many people as, buffs technically should, but there's people who do main Genji, and we'll talk about Hanzo in a second, but like Hanzo and Reinhardt, like you said, it'll be a huge difference to them.
Right. So going on to Hanzo also doesn't have a cooldown for climbing the walls anymore, but also got a buff to his bow, where the increased the charge speed by 10%, and charge arrows now maintain their charge after climbing a wall, providing the button is continually held. So what they mean by charge speed is it's kind of like how long it takes him to draw the bow. Widowmaker's similarly is like how long it takes her to go from 0 to 100 for a shot. And so it's done 10% faster. So he's going to be able to get more powerful shots off faster, and also will be able to, start holding, a holding whatever it is, left click, I guess, and climbing a wall, holding onto it, and then be able to immediately shoot once that wall's climbed. So as if I needed another reason to rage at Hanzo mains this week. This week's PSA, by the way, is if you have gold damage and gold eliminations as Hanzo, doesn't make you a good Hanzo. Continuing on. Any thoughts on these Hanzo changes?
It doesn't, like we kind of mentioned with Genji, it doesn't seem like it's going to be super, super, super impactful, except to the people who play a lot of Hanzo, because I don't think the change to his arrows maintaining their charge when he wall climbs is going to really affect anything, except for people who really, really know how to utilize Hanzo's kit and are constantly wall climbing, constantly looking to flank, supports and stuff in the back. Then they'll really be able to utilize those changes. But the charge speed increased by 10% doesn't seem like a huge deal. I don't think it's that much of a buff. I think it's a fine buff. I'm not sure why they wanted to really buff Hanzo. Maybe they feel like he's not played enough. But I don't think that it's anything game-breaking, so I think it's fine.
Yeah, I totally agree. Going on to Arisa here. So Arisa has been one of those flavors of heroes that has been very polarized. I would say one of the more polarized heroes that we've probably ever seen, in the sense where when somebody picks Sombra, it took months for that to be okay, right? With Arisa, it was, it caught on a lot quicker, but there was still plenty of people who disliked seeing Arisa getting played. But she did get some changes. First, her fusion driver damage has been reduced by 15%, so that's a nerf. But her protective barrier, the cooldown was reduced from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, right? So this is that's kind of a big buff, and actually people think that this is a huge buff. And the developer comments were, to help Arisa maintain the front line for her team, we're reducing the cooldown of her protective barrier. This change also helps her reposition the barrier more easily when needed. To compensate for this new defensive strength, we're reducing her fusion driver's damage as it felt too high. So I'm glad that they made this change, because I swear to God, every time I have an Arisa on the team, they are never trying to contest and hold a point. Never. They're always behind. And it's been very difficult. I'm sorry. I can't be the one contesting a point, or I can't be the one pushing the payload or defending the payload if you're going to be, 20 yards back behind your shield, just spraying and praying and talking about your gold medals. So it's, I'm glad that they're doing that. I just hope that people then now will use it. But in gold, people don't shoot the barrier. In gold and platinum, people don't shoot the barrier anyway. I'm like, guys, shoot the barrier. Guys, shoot the barrier. They finally shoot the barrier, and boom, the barrier's down already. I'm like, guys, that was 12 seconds at least. That was 12 seconds. That can't happen.
As towards the protective barrier, that cooldown being reduced from 12 seconds to 8 seconds, I really don't know why they did this. Her barrier was almost always up for the 12 seconds anyway, with the amount of barriers that they have in the game with Zarya barrier, Reinhardt shield, Arisa. I I'd never heard anyone complain that the Arisa barrier wasn't up along. I think going from 12 seconds to 8 seconds is humongous. That is so big, and I think that it's going to be game-breaking because Arisa's shield will always be up. And I understand the point that they made where this change from 12 seconds to 8 seconds helps her reposition the barrier more easily when needed. I get that, because when you put the barrier down and they switch, it's kind of just useless because the walls on the side, on the left and right side of it, aren't thick, so you just have to switch what angle you're attacking on, and then you could just bypass the Arisa barrier. But I don't think that it was a big enough deal. That's where your Reinhardt comes in, or your Zarya comes in to watch the flankers. Okay,
Right.
So I don't think it was that big enough a deal to break it and reduce it from 12 seconds to 8 seconds. I just think that Arisa is, especially because the cooldown starts when she drops the barrier instead of being broken. I just can't imagine a team in plat or gold or diamond being able to take out an Arisa shield in 8 seconds before the 8 seconds is up. And then, okay, so if it takes 4 seconds to kill the shield, you have 4 seconds without having another shield? That just seems kind of overpowered to me. I don't like this change. I'm hoping that they will revert it or maybe change it to maybe 10 seconds to kind of help that feel for being able to replace it. What you were saying, though, about the damage reduction, I think your happiness at the damage reduction is slighted by a player's skill instead. Because just because the Arisa is all the way in the back because she thinks that she has enough damage with their fusion driver to attack aggressively, that's not a poor character design. That's a poor personal. I think that's human error. I think that's the player's skill
they suck
showing.
at Arisa.
Yeah, and I don't think they know how to play the character. So I don't think that you should reduce damage if Arisas are playing too aggressively because they think their damage is high. I don't personally think that Arisa's damage was super high. I never had a problem with it. If I ever got into a fight with an Arisa, the spread was so big that I think it more than compensated for the amount of damage that she put out and the amount that she has in her clip. I think it was completely fine. So I'm not sure why they reduced the damage. I think if they had just reduced the damage without the protective barrier change, she probably wouldn't be played as much. If they had just changed the protective barrier and hadn't reduced her damage, I think she'd be played indefinitely. So I don't know. I don't like the combination of the two, the nerf and the buff they gave her. So hopefully they'll be able to figure out some kind of middle ground to figure out where they want her, because obviously she's not being played how they want her to be played. Mm-hmm. So I hope that something changes. I'm not a fan of her changes currently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the changes. I mean, this is going to do the same thing. Now, it's kind of, we always compare Arisa to Reinhardt. Like that's always the go-to comparison. Even the devs compare Arisa to Reinhardt. So, and you look at it, Reinhardt has a 2000 shield that regenerates, but also dies and is mobile. Arisa has a 900 shield that regenerates in the sense that it has a cooldown. You just pop it back on within that amount of time, but it's stationary. So the weakness of Arisa, assuming that the barrier is always up, the weakness of Arisa becomes her flanks, as far as, or her just her position overall, I suppose, and the position that you're attacking from. And it's going to make, I think, characters like Reaper or Genji or Tracer a little bit stronger. Characters that can move to the sides relatively easy.
Yeah.
And I also think it means that we'll see some more Arisa on Arisa and some more like attack bastion type things. We've all seen the cheesy defense where they have a Reinhardt Arisa bastion.
Arisa,
The best thing that I found is I just hop on a bastion myself and just, rip through those shields.
Destroy the shields.
Yeah. And just rip through those, find the best way to rip through those shields as quickly as possible. And after that's done, they switch off, I switch off, everything's better. And so I like this in the sense that we will, besides Ana, we'll see, I think, another hero that'll get played more. I'm not, the damage reduction Honestly, I always liked having Arisas on the team for the amount of damage they put out. They could zone relatively easily and just, shoot it consistently, just like Bastion does. Just shoot it at an open alleyway or whatever, and you're going to do a lot of damage. You can get those shields down relatively easy. But the Arisa doesn't realize, like, well, you shot a Reinhardt shield for, 45 seconds in the last minute and a half. That's why you have 4,000 damage. It's not because you're getting kills and shooting shields is important, but it's that awareness of when your damage and gold damage is coming from killing heroes and when it's coming from shooting down shields. So, let's talk about Reaper though, because Reaper hasn't really seen himself in the meta since the Beyblade days. And we might see him come back here with a relatively simple change. Basically, what they've changed is the Wraith form. When Reaper goes into Wraith form, ammo is now entirely refilled when Wraith form is used. Wraith form, developer comments say, Wraith form is typically used as an escape ability after firing. This change gives Reaper a fighting chance if an enemy chases him down as he uses it. Rosh, what do you think about these changes? I feel like this is one of the biggest buffs on this patch.
Really?
Yes, 100%.
Really? I just like, okay. I'm just like, okay, it sounds like a good buff. I mean, the developer comments are pretty spot on. Wraith is almost never used aggressively, so it's always used defensively. It sucks if someone decides to chase you through your Wraith form and you can't reload, so you come out of Wraith form. They know where you are because they're watching you this entire time. They're already pre-aiming at your head. Once you get the tracking of the character moving in Wraith form, you're dead. You have to reload. They don't. You're at a disadvantage. So, I mean, I believe it. I think it is a buff. It's definitely a buff. I just don't see it as a huge buff. Maybe it's because I haven't seen Reapers play, but I just didn't realize it was that much of a problem. It was that detrimental to Reapers beforehand that it stopped people from playing Reaper because of that. So maybe it is. Maybe I just I'm not super familiar with Reaper players. And maybe that is one of the big problems that has stopped them from playing. But I just feel like Reaper has been pushed out of meta for other reasons, and this doesn't tackle those other reasons. Maybe with the soldier changes that we'll get into in a second, maybe that'll also open the door for Reaper to come back with this positive buff. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I think it's a good change, though. I think that it's a really good change.
Fair enough. Yeah, the thing with Reaper, right, is he's a great tank buster. But if you go through a clip and you don't kill them, you're kind of SOL. You're dead, and you try to Wraith form out and hope that they can't follow you. And doing that. And the best Reapers do that well. They go back to their team lines. They do those types of evasive maneuvers. But even McCree has, an ability that lets him kind of like reload so quickly. And you can use like McCree's barrel roll of a great example of like a dual function type ability where one is kind of movement forward, backwards, aggressively or not. The other part is a reload. And so I think this is going to be really good for Reaper, especially as we're seeing more shields. We're starting to see tanks kind of come back in. I'm seeing a little bit more like triple tank, I feel like. And so, and especially with these changes to soldier, like we might even see more triple tank. We'll have to see.
One thing that I do want to say for anyone listening, when we say that Reaper is out of the meta, at least for me personally, when I say that Reaper's out of the meta, I'm talking about like Masters, Grandmasters, esports, tournaments, that kind of thing. You don't really see Reaper in meta. When I play on my lower elo accounts, if I'm playing with someone or I'm just, relaxing and having fun, Reaper, I actually love having Reaper on my team. So
a Reaper can carry,
like a little, just a little note there. When we say that we don't think it's in meta, that's what we're talking about. At lower elo, I've asked people to switch to Reaper because it just does so much massive damage. So before we get any angry emails saying that Reaper is completely unviable and really that he is, and we're totally biased and we hate Reaper, I just wanted to note that that's all we meant. That's all we meant.
The payload damage control. You're catching
exactly.
on. You get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. You're going to love this change here. The effective height has been lowered from 3 meters to 2 meters. The height threshold of objects that Earth Shatter can climb has been lowered from 3 meters to 2 meters as well, making Earth Shatter less likely to climb tall objects as it crawls along the ground. Wow, I can't say the word crawl. Developer comments, Earth Shatter tended to climb unexpectedly high for Rosh, frequently hitting targets that were Rosh and were significantly above the ground. These changes help the ability stay more grounded for Rosh. So...
yeah.
How do you feel about these changes?
This is the best news of the month for me. I actually yelled at my streams because I woke up and I saw it on Twitter. No one DM'd me this. No one added me in this post. Like, this is the most life-changing thing for me because I will be 8 feet above the ground and I'm playing around a Reinhardt Shatter. Well, obviously I wasn't playing well enough because then I would have been 10 feet above the ground. But to me, logically, if you're above 8 feet, you should not get hit with a Reinhardt ult. Like, there's no way. You're in how the heck does it happen? It just doesn't make any sense. But then people made arguments, they want Reinhardt ult to come off the ground in case you're jumping or you're jumping off of a box or something like that, so you can't jump over the ult. So it made sense for there to have some kind of height accountability for his ult. But 9 feet in the air, there have been times when I've just been so far away from a Reinhardt ult, and it seemed like I get hit from it. So this is huge. This is life-changing. You don't have to worry about shifting over the fray of the battle and then getting hit with a Reinhardt ult because it's now only 6 feet in the air, not 9. So, or wait, a yard is 3 feet. What is a meter? 4 feet?
Good enough estimation. Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
But yeah, this change is huge. I'm totally for this change. I've been asking for this since the game freaking came out, so I'm excited for it. Best change I think that's happened in this patch update.
Good. I'm glad you're happy, Raj, because Soldier 76 saw a little nerf this week. And basically his bullet damage has been decreased from 20 to 19. And basically the comments were he's in a better place lately, but his damage output was making him a must pick compared to similar roles, which I would totally agree with. Anytime someone tried to pick another kind of pure DPS that wasn't like flanker, like a tracer or a Genji. Yeah, like McCree. It was immediately, why would you not pick Soldier?
Yeah.
What's the reason to not pick Soldier? He heals himself, does a ton of damage, and I get so many Helix rocket kills, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
So
it's big. Before this nerf, they had buffed Soldier. What he was before is his damage was 17. He did 17 per shot, and he had a tighter spread. So then this one, I don't remember what they did to make him currently, but he's too good. So he overpowers McCree's like we were just talking about. So now they're reducing that from 20 to 19. It basically comes out to you needed 1 extra headshot to kill someone, which isn't that bad. I think that's completely fine with how fast his projectile rate is and how fast he can reload and how sufficient he is. And I think that it'll open up the grounds for probably McCree and maybe Reaper to come back in. So we'll see. One thing I am worried about, Fair Mercy was already making a huge comeback in ranked. This Soldier nerf is going to be an even bigger buff than Pharah for Pharah, and I don't think she needs a buff. I think she's perfectly fine. I think this is going to make Pharmacy way better, and that we'll probably see some nerfs on that end coming soon because of this buff or nerf, because of this nerf. So it'll be interesting.
Cool. I almost thought I lost my whole recording for a second. I almost started crying on stream, but all is okay. All is well. So that's the big changes for the patch notes on the PTR. We'll keep you posted here on the Payload as they go to live and any other tweaks and stuff get made. We did get one interesting developer post this week from wholesome Jeff Kaplan here. This warmed my heart a little bit. So, guy named or gal named Rainbow posted on the forum saying, I understand esports is the main focus of a lot of games right now, but Plats and Diamonds should still be able to put in their 2 cents rather than relying on your gods of the game to tell you what works in their extremely competitive setting. Jeff responds with, I know it might feel like these forums don't give lower ranked players a voice, but rest assured that we look at all ranks equally. We're constantly evaluating feedback regardless of whenever we look at stats. We are careful to evaluate on each tier as well as each platform. And here we go. Remember, these forums are a very vocal, self-selected community. Don't allow anyone to make you feel like your voice doesn't matter. It matters to us. It matters to us. Okay, anyways. Yeah, so Jeff just bringing out the wholesome memes on the official subreddit. So I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty neat. And go rage on the forums now because Jeff reads all forum posts and from all levels equally. So pretty cool. All right, let's jump in to strategy this week.
Faster than sight. So predictable.
All right, so we were talking about this week about what we wanted to chat about, and Rosh had an awesome idea to talk about support mains in Overwatch. It's been a hot button topic for the last few weeks at least. But Rosh, you know what? Give us your spin. Sell us on this segment really quick.
All right, so there has been a lot of hate is an understatement for how much has been going directed at support mains. Overwatch currently doesn't incorporate role-specific queues in order to support different comps, i.e. triple tank, triple DPS, etc. So the likelihood of getting more than 2 support mains, 2 DPS mains, and 2 tank mains on your team is pretty great. If you're a tank main or even a DPS main, there's a higher chance for you to know other roles at a similar skill level to your main, i.e. tanky roles if you're a DPS main, and vice versa, DPS roles if you're a tank main. Whereas with maining a support character, chances are you can't swap to a DPS and perform just as well as you could on your main support. And that's for a variety of reasons, because playing supports are just different. You have to position yourself better. You have to work on being in the back lines, and then switching to a DPS, you're more in the front lines, you're playing more aggressively. There's just numerous reasons that it doesn't work as well being a support main and then going to a DPS. So this week we kind of just want to discuss, what's going on Twitter, what's going on Overwatch streamers, what's going on in professional streamers' opinions, and stuff like that for support mains, if they should maybe play other roles just as much and get to on an equal skill level, if there should be strict or regulations and stuff like that. We just kind of wanted to get into that and talk about it this week, so I'm excited too.
This is a really interesting conversation, and actually until you brought it up, I haven't really given it much thought, because at low to like medium elos, somebody who's support main is a godsend, right? Because you have somebody who's actually competent, because everybody is a DPS warrior in low elos, and everyone is like a tank and healer warrior in higher elos a lot of times. So like it feels like there's less, unless it's like a Genji or a Tracer again. And so when you brought this up, I began to think about it critically when I was playing Overwatch and seeing people who were maining support, and like I hate playing support. I'm an amazing, maybe GM level Mercy, but besides that, like it's you ask my chat, they're all about my Mercy play. Gotcha. I can pocket a Pharah like nobody's business. And it's been kind of interesting to think about, because like I love playing like Zenyatta. I love playing Ana. Ana is maybe the most fun character I've ever played with, just because it's it feels like
There's
an
a lot
arcade
to it.
game. It feels like an arcade game to me where it's like I'm playing whack-a-mole or something like that. And I really enjoyed it, but I've noticed a few things. Number one, I don't think it's, and at least the games that I've seen, I don't think I've seen people really upset that somebody mains support or tank or DPS. What I see, and what really honestly cheeses my curds, is when somebody mains a hero and refuses to switch.
Yeah.
Whether they are unwilling or unable, it's when they refuse to switch. Like we've all queued in with a guy named Shimada Bros who only plays Hanzo or Genji.
Yeah.
Like we've all been that, and you're just like, dude, you're just making it worse for everybody else at this moment in time. But support wasn't one that I've really dealt with, and I know you've gotten some flack playing support in the past.
Yeah, and I think that gets into our next question about, maining something and if you should or should not, because I completely agree wholeheartedly. I think the anger at supports is less, I'm tired of all these support mains. It's more, I'm tired of all of these one-trick support mains that can't play anything else and refuse to swap off. And then from there it goes, okay, we have 4 support mains in this group. There's no way we're winning because the support can't play a DPS. So first off, we'll kind of start, should support mains not only know the supports they play, but other roles as well? Does this hurt the team if the support main doesn't know other roles? I think that it's completely fine, personally, to be a support player that doesn't really know how to play a DPS or tank well. I think asking someone who does not play professionally and does not put 12, 14, 15 hours a day, 6 days a week into the game to be able to play a DPS role and a support role as efficiently as one another at whatever skill level they are is unreasonable. But I think that it is completely fine, the support main, knowing not only their character, but the other supports as well. So for me, for example, I play a lot of Mercy. Yes, I would count myself as a Mercy main, definitely a support main, but I can switch off if there's someone who only plays Mercy. If we don't want a Mercy, I can switch off. I could play Lucio. I could play Zenyatta. And off stream, when I'm not panicked and stressed and judged, I could play Ana. So I think a lot of the hate stems from people misunderstanding that support mains aren't the ones being attacked. It's the support mains who don't know other support classes to switch to. And I think that's where a lot of the hate comes from.
And that, I'm glad you hit on that, because I feel like that's something that Blizzard has done a relatively good job with for supports, is you have like a pure support in like Mercy, where like her job is healing and damage boost. Every once in a while you get a battle Mercy, but I have not in my lifetime seen somebody on Mercy get a damage card. And so that's just not what she's meant to do. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have someone like Zenyatta, who can put out a ton of damage, especially with that Discord orb, and can heal up the team passively. And then you kind of have the in-betweeners, the Ana and Lucio, who can kind of do both. Do you feel like they've done a good enough job with the spread of, we'll call them healing supports, with healing supports, that if your team's like, hey, can you do more damage, and you're like a support main, something like a Zen or an Ana, it is enough to kind of sate that? Or do you feel that people just look right into, oh, well, you're looking in the support bunch of heroes?
Yeah,
so
I think that's it, is that people see a Zenyatta and they don't even see like, oh, we're going to have more damage input or output than we would if we had a Mercy. Like they just see, oh, it's a support, we only have 2 DPS. So I think that that's definitely a thing. I think that a lot of it is just people, they're trying to figure out the best way to phrase this.
And you're totally biased in this, right? So Rush,
I'm trying not
to be, but can you please just be biased? That's totally fine. Play your perspective, and do that, because that's why we have you on the show, is to do it. We know you're not a biased support trouncing kind of support master race type of person, but you get a very unique perspective of being one of the few people that I've ever known, let alone heard of, get to a GM near top 500 state, largely playing Mercy and Lucio.
Yeah. I think that Blizzard's done a great job. I think what they could do better is try and figure out a way to maybe bring Zenyatta back into the balance a teeny tiny bit more. I think that's just, you're never going to get, what are we at, 26 characters now? I think 26 is what we're at. There's never going to be a way to get all 26 characters playable at the exact same rate as one another. And expecting all 5 supports to be as equal on everybody else is not the same. So when a support main knows how to play Ana, Mercy, Lucio, Symmetra, and Zenyatta, they don't get enough credit because Zenyatta isn't really that good in the meta. He's not really that good. So even though the support main did go out of the way to play a more DPS progressive support, it gets brushed aside because that support isn't just that good. So I think that it would help if that support were good, we're better in the meta. People would see that and respect it a little bit more, but as it is, they don't. And that's just something that's going to happen. I don't foresee all 5 supports being on equal ground anytime soon or ever in this game, honestly. This is just so hard to do with so many characters. So I think I think it's unreasonable for DPS and tanks to say, oh, the support at Grandmaster, say they're 4,000 elo, they should be able to play their support main at 4,000 elo. But if we have 3 or 4 support mains on our team, they should also be able to swap to a soldier or a Reinhardt or a Zarya and be able to play that class at 4,000 elo too. And like I said earlier, unless you're playing professionally, and even if you are, I just don't foresee that being feasible. And I think that people are trying to make it seem like it is. And I don't know. I think there's this whole stigma between support mains now.
And honestly, I think you can make the argument that it extends even beyond that. I think a realistic expectation on a player is to play one hero very well, a second hero well to very well, and a third hero fine, And anything beyond that, it means you've put in a lot of time or have built a toolkit of heroes who are similar enough to where they're relatively transferable. And I think that's the same, but usually, unless you've picked niche heroes like, well, I'm a Hanzo and a Torbjorn main, usually it's like, well, we can always use a soldier. But there's a lot of, if you get 3 people who main support on a team, you're in trouble a little bit. And I know I might be skipping ahead a little bit, but we've heard this conversation about like different queues for different roles, which I think with a simple redefining of some of those roles, I think they can totally do that just fine. But like Overwatch was founded on the premise of hero switching and knowing multiple heroes and being able to adapt to whatever you're seeing. And that really pigeonholes kind of the ability to do that. Now, I think they could do some stuff to change that. Like, maybe find a way to make, like a Genji and a Tracer in their own type of queue. So, you maybe have 8 or 9 different roles over 24, 25 different characters and, 2 to 3 per. So you're kind of guaranteed to be able to fill those different types of roles. But at the same time, it just like what we thought was going to happen. Remember when we used to have no hero limit? Remember those days? Yeah. And it just couldn't work. I think this is another one of those situations where, while this is kind of painful, for a lot of players and is causing a lot of players to have a negative experience. I also think that the alternative, in my personal opinion, like some sort of, support queue or whatever, is even worse. Personally, I would just love having a solo queue and a full queue or something like that. Like I would rather just see multiple different sizes of queues. But beyond like this dynamic queue that we have.
Yeah, and I think it gets really tricky because, should there be a role selection for Overwatch? Like we both said a couple of times, Overwatch was built on the principle of them wanting a diversity of comps that can run, whether that's 4 tanks or 3 tanks or 2 tanks or 1 tank and 3 DPS. And if you add a role selection to the queue and you get 2 DPS that selected DPS, 2 tanks that selected 2 DPS or 2 tanks, and then 2 supports, you can't really diversify your team comp in the match. And that kind of takes away the main principle that Blizzard wanted for Overwatch. So I think it'd be really hard to do that. I don't know how. I think that they could fix support mains overwhelming the queue, because at the end of the day, that's what a lot of people are complaining about, is that Team A gets the RNG of having 4 support mains on their team. Supports that can't necessarily play DPS as well because either they can't aim as well or they just haven't practiced on DPS, or their positioning is fundamentally different as a support than a DPS. So they're at a disadvantage because you obviously can't run 4 support mains on a team and have it work. So Team A is at a disadvantage because they now have 1 or 2 DPS that are normally support mains, so they're not up to par as Team B, who might have gotten 2 DPS, 2 tanks, and 2 support. Team B is, if I had to put bet on one of the teams, I would choose Team B because it's a lot easier for DPS to pick a support than it is a support to pick a DPS.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Do you think now because for me, I would make an argument that I think it would be relatively just as easy for a support to pick something like a tank role. You stand there and just shoot a beam. Why can't you just stand there and hold a rectangle? Do you think that there is some bias in there because you know support so well, you know the intricacies? Do you think a tank main or a DPS main could make the same counter argument?
No, and that's what I was just about to say, that people argue that it's easier to, if you're a DPS main, it's way easier to support. You should be able to pick it up like nothing. But it's completely different. And I think that there's 100% a bias there because, yeah, a DPS main might be able to pocket their fare like me, but they don't have the experience and the outlook that I've gotten over hundreds of hours of playing this. It's completely different. And even you saying a support should be able to go to a tank, it should be easy. A tank is in the front lines. You're playing that character completely different than a support that you're working on your positioning. You're working on the enemy's positioning. You're working on 5 billion things that while you might not aim as well. Yeah, but they do it in the front. So it's a lot different. It's just opposite positioning where, yes, you do work on the positioning. So you should have that, keen sense of really working on your positioning, but it's the complete opposite. So while I wouldn't say that it's hard. I think that a support would definitely much easier pick up a tank class than a DPS. I just don't think it would be quote unquote easy for a support to pick it up because they're both working on positioning, just because of how on opposite sides of the scale they are. But so I definitely think there is a bias there, especially from DPS who say, oh, well, I could pick a support so easily and I could play Mercy so easily, or I could play Ana so easily. Yeah, you probably can pick it up and it probably will be easy, but there are going to be key fragments that you're missing out that the support main wouldn't have been able to do. There are going to be key moments that the support main probably would have been able to save that you didn't because you have the mind of a DPS, not a support. So yeah, it kind of.
You don't think that goes another way though? Like,
oh no, 100%.
Okay,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Like that's the whole point of like maining a character is so you can know and understand it so intimately that you are able to pull off things that somebody who doesn't normally play that role or plays that role only half as often wouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that goes the opposite way, like you said, with the support. Just because maybe your aim is just, if you give a support an aimbot and a DPS an aimbot and you ask them to switch, there's still going to be things that the DPS playing the support isn't going to have done that the support main could have done. And there's going to be things that the DPS player or the support main that's playing a DPS can't do because they're not a DPS main. So 100%, there are absolutely things on all sides, tank, DPS, defensive, and support, that if you don't main that role, you're just not going to be able to fulfill.
So is this on Blizzard to fix then? Are you saying, Blizzard, we need a better solution to this? Or are you actually saying this might be a bit on you as well as a support main, where you've been pigeonholed and maybe you need to change that, or a combination of both?
I was going to say, I think it's a combination of both. As a support main, I think you should definitely know the supports in your support main. But if you do get into that sticky situation of you have 5 support mains on your team, yeah, maybe know how to play another character, maybe know how to play a tank since that's more similar, or soldier or Pharah, since Pharah is kind of similar to Lucio with projectiles and being elevated and stuff like that. But I think to make the chances of that happening occur where you have 5 support mains, I think that maybe they should go in and tweak the amount of, and I hate saying this because I'm a support player, so of course I want just as many points as my DPS main is getting equivocantly on the match. But I think that maybe the DPS mains, I think that this might be something that Blizzard can help by maybe tweaking how many points a DPS main gets to be maybe a teeny tiny bit more than support as it is now. Because right now it's super easy to climb as a support character. You get more SR for a win and you lose less SR because you're typically in the back. So you're not taking all of the aggro from the other characters. You might not be dying as much. You're doing more, especially as a Mercy who's getting credit for damage boosting assists and everything else. So maybe that's something that Blizzard could do, go in and tweak that a little bit to where DPS are getting the credit that's due, but also right now, if you look at the top, I don't know, if you look at 4,000 plus, there's an influx of support players that's never been there before. And I think that's increasing your chances of getting 3 or 4 support mains in a team. And as much as I don't like taking away the amount of SR that I might get for a win, I think that at this point, with how many supports are entering 4,000 plus or 3,500 plus, I think it's getting to a point that something has to be done, and it can't be a role queue because that takes away the basic principle that Overwatch wants with team and their composition base. So something has to be done, and that's really the only thing I can think of that might be the easiest to do right now until they can figure out something better.
This is kind of interesting. So I was actually just kind of comparing this to, MOBAs for a moment. And MOBAs, you have the same thing. You have tanks, DPS, or whatever. You can call them warriors and junglers or whatever they call. I'm not a MOBA guy, but I understand the basic principle. There's different roles. And while players tend to like stick to certain roles, you can't just play one hero for the most part.
Yeah.
And you were a League of Legends player, right? You played League, didn't you?
A little bit.
A little
long
bit.
Time ago.
Oh, I thought for some reason like that's how you got started. Never mind. So like maybe it's just like it there must have been something that Blizzard could have done, in my opinion, to prevent this situation from happening. Now, we've kind of talked about like SR and a true skill system and not, and I actually had a great conversation with Joshi, asked Joshi on Twitter about like, how do you address the inconsistency in the amount of SR that you gain? And we've even talked about it on the show a little bit. And honestly, I'm at the point where I think that like once you maybe hit diamond or maybe it's master, it's a flat win-loss rate, no matter your role. You win together, you lose together. It's worked in other popular games. Sure, below that, like your potential to carry is higher. But at that point, once you're at, 4,000 plus, 3,500 plus, it becomes incredibly paramount that you're competing, playing, and trying to win as a team. So, like, is maybe that a solution? Like, will that help a little bit?
I think so, because the main problem that people are complaining about and facing at top tier ranks, at like 4K plus, is just this influx of support mains that are up there. There's so many support mains at higher tier levels, and I think that it's because it's easier to climb as a support because you win more points and you lose less points than it is as a DPS. I think that's where all of this stems from, all the frustration at support mains who can't play, DPS classes and tanks comes from. So if you fix that underlying issue of the top tier just being flooded with support mains because it's so easy to get up there as a support, I think that would address the frustration and the irritation and just all the negative feelings at support mains, and you wouldn't have to worry about knowing a DPS role just as well at GM level as your support, because there are less support mains up there. And I think that this is something that Blizzard has changed, I think in Season 3, when they inflated rating. I think that somewhere in those patch notes, they increased the amount of SR, because you remember when Overwatch first came out, there were 6 decks that were running together, and the supports were placing 1,000 points lower than their DPS. I think at some point they fixed that, and since that, they've adjusted the amount of points that supports should gain fairly, which I think they should have done, but I think that they might have done it too much, until where now its supports are losing way less SR than a DPS is, and they're gaining more consistently, so that's why the top is being flooded with it. Hence the frustration from DPS mains at support mains. So I think that that's where the problem lies, and I think that, if you did that, and you did maybe equal points, that it might even it out like that. It might give more of a surplus of tanks and DPS in the queues. That way you have less RNG to get for support mains. Eventually, you can have the perfect system in the world, and the RNG is still going to get you eventually. You're still going to get a match that you have 3 support mains. That's inevitable. I think that that's always going to happen. It happens in every game. In League of Legends, this developed game for multiple years, you still get games where, I know that they've introduced the role, they've done role and other, you still get games, even with such a good system like that, you still get games where there's multiple top mains or multiple mid mains. I think that's inevitable. I think with the RNG of the game, that's going to happen. But I definitely think there are steps that Blizzard can take to reduce the percentage of that happening.
What about something like this? What about a preference slider? So for example, Rosh, you queue in, you say I prefer support first, defense second, tank third, DPS fourth. And what if then what you could do is build a team based on what that person prefers to play. And it's in that role. It's not just like, I prefer support, I'm a support queuing, but instead it's going, okay, well, most of your games, you're going to get, paired up with people who are DPS and tanks, because your, two most used classes are support and defense. And obviously you could find different ways to organize the heroes first, or even find, more ways to dilute or expand that. Maybe you rank your top 10 characters that you like to play, and it tries to put, a matchmaking team together that way, where it's like, we know Rosh doesn't like not playing support, but her first choice as a non-support hero is Hanzo, right? And so we're going to try to put her with people who can kind of build around and complement that, so she's not getting in with 3 supports and now she has no choice. Like, could something like that work? And this is totally, like, I didn't think of this question. I was just, when you were talking, I was thinking about it. So obviously the fine tuning of the mechanic would need to change, but like the concept, do you think something like that might work?
I think that it could work, but I also think that it would be extremely tricky, because in order to have the mechanics to find that, the computer would have to say, okay, what's the ideal team comp? Like, is it 2 support, 2 tanks, 2 DPS? Is it 2 supports, 1 DPS, 3 tanks? So we'll try and match 3 people that prefer tanks, or should we match 2 people that prefer support? It just depends on the algorithm. You have to come up with an exact algorithm to match the teams. But in order to have an exact algorithm, you have to know the outcome that you want for the algorithm, and the outcome being the composition that your team wants to run. And you can't find that out until you get in the game with the 5 other people. Do they want to run 3 tanks? Do they want to run 2 DPS? Like, why should the computer decide what comps you're more likely to run in that algorithm of trying to match you together than you? And I think that's the biggest thing. So I think that you could probably figure out the correct algorithm to look at, like, oh, maybe you should have so many people that prefer supports but also play DPS, but then you should also have DPS that maybe want to play tanks, and then the tanks also want to play the support, so that you can interchange as much as possible. But I think that finding that algorithm is going to be extremely tricky and extremely hard, not to force you into compositions that you don't want to play. So sure. I think yes, but at the same time, I think it would be tricky.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, the way that I see it, like, probably getting played out is just making sure, like, amongst the preferred heroes, imagine that the more preferred a hero is on your list, the higher point value it's given. So let's say Mercy for you is given 10 points and Lucio is given 7. And then your third favorite hero, Ana, is giving 3, and you have to pick one additional role that's not in, like, that class. So you pick Hanzo and you give that a 2. What it attempts to do is create an even spread among those different things, so that there are always 3 to 4 people who can play 3 to 4 heroes in each category. So it's not perfect, but what it guarantees is that, you know, you're not a DPS main, but it means that you have people who there's always at least 3 or 4 different options for people to play DPS, to tank, and to heal. So you're not pigeonholing that much. You're not limiting things that much, but at the same time, you are giving people preference to what they want to play. Now, obviously, there becomes, I think the bigger issue is there becomes ways to cheese that. Mm-hmm. I can already think of 3 moderators in our Twitch chat room who would choose Hanzo, Torbjorn, Symmetra, Arisa, and, you know, whatever, Bastion as, you know, their 5 picks, and they would just do that for fun. And, you know, like, those types of things could, you know, really mess it up. And then you'd have to have a really aggressive reporting system to do that. And it would just, it could very easily derail. But I wonder if there's not some sort of solution there. I want to bring up one more thing, then we got to get out of here. We're actually going a little bit long. Grow Roots in chat says, I don't think the concept of having a main helped this out very much as well. Players should look at having pool of players instead of maining a certain one. I agree. Personally, I don't think anybody here on the show would disagree with you. I think that you have to start somewhere, and where you start, you'll always have a hero that you feel like you're strongest in, that you feel most at home. And I think sometimes people attribute that to main, and I think it's very different than the guy who only plays Hanzo. Like, you know, versus like, I really like Zarya. I look for every opportunity to play Zarya that I can, because I like the way she plays. I like how I can contribute when I play her, and I feel like I'm getting fairly good at that. And you know, like that started from somewhere. I have a hero pool. I can play a few different heroes decently well. But I think the concept of mains and like favorite heroes also kind of get lost in translation sometimes. Any other thoughts, Rosh?
No, I think we covered a lot of them.
Time is money, friends, and we're almost flat broke.
We got to get out of here. This was fun. Thanks for hanging out with us in the chat. I hope you enjoyed episode number 66. And for those of you listening at home, at work, in your car, wherever you are. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Payload. We got one quick thing. We're going to start doing something new every week called the bonus drop. All this is to give you a pretty cool look at something that came out in the community that is really cool or helpful, but doesn't necessarily make for good content on a show. And this one is a massive spreadsheet put together with, it's from Wawa's Boot Camp, and basically puts together notable players by hero, links their social media, links their Twitch, and all that stuff. There is 8 pages worth of different tools and things here. So it's pretty cool. So that's in the show notes. Check it out. And yeah. Also, if you have any thoughts, questions you'd like to hear discussed on the show, send us a payload to thepayload@blizzpro.com. And we'd love to discuss that on the show here. And I got to switch the overlay really quick because I forgot to check. I didn't forget to check, but Patreon. This week we do have one new patron, Jacob S. Welcome to the Patreon. Good sir. And hope you enjoy your time here. We did cross our $200 merch store goal, so I'm gonna get with JR and make sure that we get that set up ASAP. Get your Payload shirts, and we'll probably give at least a couple away here on this show to celebrate. So thank you all for that. If you like the show and want to support, head over to patreon.com/Payload Podcast. Anything going on in iTunes review land?
We do not, unfortunately, have any 5-star reviews this week to comment on, which means that I don't have any crazy names to try and pronounce, which is kind of a bummer because I like doing that each week. 5-star reviews help us a lot on a week-to-week basis, and if you'd like to show your support for the show, they're incredibly easy to leave. Thank you bunches to everyone who has previously left one. If you haven't done so yet, you can do so at iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and Google Podcasts.
Awesome. All right, well, let's do some shout-outs for the week. I'll do one for Jimmy first. You can find Jimmy on Twitter and Twitch at DJ Tyrant. That's DJTYRANT. Find out what he's doing throughout the week. Hang out with him on his Twitch channel. And yeah. Rosh, what about you? Where can people find you? Any shout-outs for the week? Things you got going on?
You can find me. A lot of people have been coming over from the show, and it's been really cool to put names to listeners for the podcast. So you can find me at twitch.tv/okitsrosh. You can also find me at Twitter at /F2K_okitsrosh. Again, it's really cool meeting you guys and talking to you live instead of just knowing that you're out there listening. So it's pretty cool. I will be streaming after the podcast on my channel, and a shout out to anybody who has any kind of opinions on what we discussed today with the support. I know that people are very opinionated on the topic that we covered today, and if support mains should know DPS and stuff like that. So if you do have that, emails are amazing. We love emails. We would love to hear what you say. We would love to hear your opinion. So if you have any maybe answers that we didn't discuss this week on the show, definitely send them that way. We'd love to read them.
Yeah. As for me, you can find me everywhere at Kick Tripod. I actually have a pretty cool news. I actually am streaming with a stream team and professional esports organization, Onslaught Clan. And so I'll be joining them and their group of streamers, hanging out. And we've been having an awesome time, and they've been really accommodating. Very nice to me personally, which is kind of my... Like, you know, I was just nervous. And so it's been really fun. You can check out their website at onslaughtclan.com or go to kicktripod.com, where I put a blog post about getting affiliated on Twitch. Have you gotten your affiliate email yet?
I have.
Yeah. So
I've been
you're
an
set
affiliate
up
for about a week now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Last time we talked, you weren't affiliated. So
yeah, I think you actually got yours.
Too.
I think you got your email before me, but it took you a few days to get all of the information submitted.
Right.
Where for me, I got my email after you, but mine was actually submitted instantly. I didn't really have to wait for it. So it just happened where I ended up having bits show up on my page before you, even though you got the email before me.
Yeah, tax stuff. for me is a little bit different. So you can find me on Twitch and Twitter at KickTripod as well. Come hang out. I'm streaming almost every day. Overwatch and Destiny is kind of what I'm doing. I think Destiny is going to be my complementary game to Overwatch going into the future. I'm pretty excited about it. Anyways, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for tuning in to episode 66 of The Payload. You can take a second to leave a 5-star review and we'll mispronounce your name on the next show. And of course, a special thanks to Jake Buttineau for our music. This has been episode number 66. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.